Hi, welcome. This is Yvette from Corporate Training Academy. Today we're going to look at 6 training design strategies you can use to improve workplace performance. You can't measure return on investment of training. The training or learning and development department can't be held accountable for workplace performance. There's just too many factors at play. All I can do is run the session and an evaluation. What happens in the workplace is out of my control. Have you ever heard this? I have, and I think it's a cop-out. The purpose of training and learning and development units is to ensure staff are job ready, that they're up to date with procedures, policies, legislation, technology, whatever. We work with management to identify performance issues or come up with implications for changes within the organisation or the environments in which we work in. That's what we do. So what happens when things aren't going right in your organisation? There might be performance issues, morale might be low, there's complaints coming in, the sales aren't up. What do you find the managers look to as a solution? The staff need more training. Is that always the correct answer? No, training won't solve all issues, but that's another block. But one thing's for sure, if you do provide training and it doesn't result in the changes that they want, they will blame the training and call it a waste of time. For the issues we can help with, we have an obligation to create training that's most likely to translate into the workplace. The technical name is training transfer, and if you want to know more about it, you can Google the term. We're going to cover 6 strategies you can start using right now that'll improve the likelihood of your training translating into improved performance in your workplace. Number 1, clarify need and the participants. Often training is requested due to a workplace problem or need. Even a small needs analysis can uncover really important information, so ask questions. What makes you think there's a problem? Write down the keywords used. Are there actually measurable items here? For example, increase in complaints, injuries, absenteeism. Is there a decrease in sales? Are there too many errors on databases? That sort of thing. So what do you think the problem is? Now note, most managers will want to jump straight to solutions. You need to avoid this. You must work out the root cause rather than the symptom. This is where you may uncover that the key piece of machinery is broken. The codes for the databases have changed and all the staff need is a simple checklist at their station. The roster may actually be a problem, or there may be personal conflict that requires a managerial intervention. This is where you uncover that training is not the solution and you offer guidance and advice to the manager. Approach your needs analysis like an interview. Go with the questions written down or do it in email. Record the responses and ask probing questions until you get a real sense of what the key issues are. When you uncover the cause of the performance issue, you can get focused on what you're trying to achieve with the training. Number 2 is future state. So get agreement about how to measure your success. What do you want more of, less of? What will the manager observe? What can be measured? Now I say future state, but you could just as easily say best practice. How do you want people to behave and what do you want them to do in the workplace? This is how you know that your training's worked. And this is how you target what's in and what's out of your training. It's all about what you want them to be able to do at the end. Now, this third strategy is really important. If you want people to actually do things differently in the workplace, you have to focus on the actions. So let's be action focused. So how do most people seem to design training courses? They get a list of topics, they break it up into subtopics, and then they work out some activities to test the understanding. This leads to boring training and PowerPoint burnout. It also burns your goodwill. People know that they're not really going to learn very much. So let's think like a tradesman. Put yourself in an expert position. If you were an expert and you had to train up a novice, what would you have them do? And how would you judge the quality of what they did? So let's look at this from a few different roles. Let's think about it as a sales consultant, if you're a frontline manager, a machinist, an auditor, it doesn't matter. You have your needs analysis findings, you've got an idea of what the specific problem is, and you've got an idea of who you need to train up. So you take the role, the needs analysis findings, and the who and the problem, and together you start working out some activities. So design activities that demand those skills, knowledge, and attitudes to achieve your desired future state. So consult with your team members or resident experts in their role. Please nurture those relationships, they're really important. Make sure you're clear about the novice mistakes, their misunderstandings, their local area practice, and their culture. Once you've designed the activities, seek out a resident expert to give you feedback on what you've created. Make sure that they are suitably challenging, that they're achievable, they're realistic to the workplace. Once you know what you want people to be able to do, you'll know what content to cover. The content knowledge must be directly related to the need and the future state. Don't include any nice to knows or fillers. If you can do this in an hour, don't ask for 2. Build your goodwill, make it active, and make it about their workplace reality. So that brings us to strategy 4. Make it active and realistic. You can use loads of different instructional methods to get participants challenging how they operate, collaborating, and learning from each other. Remember, most workplace learning happens in social learning, which is out on the work floor, not in your training room. So support that idea in your learning space. I see loads of effort going into designing such tools, and yet little effort seems to be put into debriefing and unpacking what they learn when they do them. And this is really valuable stuff. So ask the questions that may be a little awkward. How would this work in your workplace? Do you see any barriers to implementing this in your workplace? How is this different from how it's done in your workplace, and why? Of course, they're challenging questions. You may uncover poor practice, or you may be met with silence. Never be afraid of silence. Someone will break it. Just smile and look expectantly at them. If you've done the work to create a safe environment, and you've got a reputation for effecting change without burning people, you'll get really important information in these debriefs. You can dispel misunderstandings and identify complicating issues that may require further intervention and will stop you from getting the outcomes you really thought you were going to get with the training. Number 5 is pretty easy to do. Just require a plan. Make it the final activity for the session. Require that they actually put pen to paper. So you're going to, I find a lot of trainers kind of assume that people will take it back into the workplace and they'll understand the key points you've made. It's just not the case. You need to be explicit about this. You need to make your expectation really clear. So give them a little time at the end of the session to reflect on what they've learned and make a plan. They also need to be really clear about how they'll measure their own success. Some people will assume that you're talking to everybody else in the room, and really they don't need to, and they're not the problem. And that's where the next step comes in. The last strategy is share accountability. For the participants, involve the supervisor and their manager. If you've got a coaching environment happening, awesome, involve your coaches. Schedule a check-in with a plan and to have a look at their observations. You can do this in person if you've got the time, or you can do it via email. We're all more likely to implement when someone's watching and when someone seems to care about the outcome. And too often really valuable and expensive time is spent in some form of intervention to fix a problem, yet little's done in the way of follow-up or checking in. Change actually needs a deliberate, monitored reaction, and that quite often needs a little bit of tweaking. So in following up on the accountability, you may also find ways to improve your training for next time. But regardless, when you build an accountability, you're making training transfer a requirement. And that's really important. Thanks for joining me. I hope you found it useful. But I'd love to know what you do. How do you promote training transfer? Is there an expectation for return on investment in your workplace? How's that measured? And how do you report back to the manager who requested the training in the first place? I'd love to hear your comments below. Share it with your colleagues or use the PowerPoint in a meeting to consider your practice. Thanks very much. I'll see you next time.